This is the BYD Atto 1. In Australia, it starts at just 23,990 Australian dollars before on-road costs. That is around $5,000 cheaper than an entry-level Toyota Yaris. But strangely, the idea behind this car isn't new. 15 years ago, Mitsubishi brought one of the world's first mass-production electric cars to Australia, the Chinese EV. If you still remember it, probably not. And most people don't. The people do only remember it as a joke. It was tiny, 4 seats, a small 16 kilowatt-hour battery designed mainly for city driving, and it cost $48,800 before on-road costs. So obviously the story was predictable. It eventually faded away after only a few hundred Australian sales. It was a good idea, but came at the wrong time. Today, BYD is offering a surprisingly similar idea for less than half of the price, even before adjusting for inflation. So what changed? How did China make the economics of the small electric car finally work? I'm Tom. I spent a lot of time investigating Chinese manufacturing and technology and what it could mean for consumers and businesses. And normally, when a Chinese product becomes dramatically cheaper, we tend to jump straight to the same explanations. Cheaper labor, government subsidies, mass production, domestic oversupply, and yes, some of those things can matter. But the deeper I went into these cars, the more I realized that we might actually be asking the wrong question, because China hasn't simply figured out how to build the same EV for half of the money. It's also been quietly changing our idea of how much do we actually need. And the first clue is sitting underneath the Atto 1. The cheapest Atto 1 has a 30 kilowatt-hour LFP battery. It gives you around 220 kilometers of WLTP range, 65 kilowatts of power, 4 seats, 15-inch steel wheels. In other words, this car has absolutely no interest in impressing you with numbers. It's basically saying, I'm a small EV, I move people from A to B, and that's it. And that is almost the opposite of what's happened to EVs over the last decade. Think about how EVs have traditionally competed. More range, more power, faster charging, bigger screens, bigger wheels, more technology. And all of that sounds great. But there's a problem. More costs money, especially more battery. So BYD seems to have asked a different question. Not how much can we put into an affordable EV, but how much can we remove before the average city driver notices? So why this didn't work 15 years ago? Remember, Mitsubishi had basically the same idea. Small car, small battery, city driving. The problem wasn't really the concept. The problem was the time. Battery packs back then were insanely expensive. Since 2010, average lithium-ion battery packs prices have fallen by more than 90% in real terms. And China has pushed battery costs even lower. In 2025, Bloomberg NEF estimated average battery packs prices in China at around $84 per kilowatt hour. LFP packs average around $81. So suddenly something that was brutally expensive 15 years ago has become relatively inexpensive. But that still doesn't explain an entire $24,000 car, because an EV obviously isn't just a battery. You need the electric motor, the power electronics, the control systems, the semiconductors, body, suspension, then the interiors. Then somebody needs to put everything together. And that is where BYD becomes unusual. BYD started as a battery company, and today it develops and manufactures many of the major components inside the electric vehicles itself. A UBS teardown of BYD's Seagull estimated that more than 75% of its components were produced in-house. For comparison, the same analysis put the China-made Tesla Model 3 at around 46% and Volkswagen's ID.3 at around 35%. Now, that doesn't mean every single component in every BYD is made by themselves, obviously not. But the point is that BYD controls an unusually large share of the expensive, critical technology inside the car. And outside the car, BYD even operate their own fleet for global logistics and car delivery. Owning the ships allow BYD to reduce per vehicle ocean freight costs by an estimated 30% to 40% compared to renting space from third-party logistic companies. And that matters, because every outside supplier needs to make money too. More things done internally can mean fewer layers of middleman margin and more control over cost. So I think there are two different things happening here. Cheaper batteries explain why the type of small EV become possible, but BYD's vertical integration helps explain how the entire car can be sold at this price. And then I found the part that really changed how I look at the Atto one, because this isn't some strange budget product China created for Australians. China already loves cars like this. In China and some other overseas market, the Atto one is called the BYD Seagull. My Chinese cousin has one since early 2025. Small, electric, cheap, designed largely around the everyday city use. But BYD isn't the only company proving that Chinese buyers want cars like this. Then there's the Geely Xingyuan. And in 2025, Geely sold around 466,000 of Xingyuan. And that made it the best-selling passenger vehicle in China. Not the best-selling Geely, not the best-selling small EV, not even the best-selling EV, the best-selling car in China of any type. And the Xingyuan is especially relevant to us because it has now arrived in Australia under another name, the Geely EX2. I'll come back to its Australian price in a moment because that is where this story becomes much bigger than one usually cheaper BYD. Because suddenly the Atto 1 and EX2 don't look like manufacturers desperately trying to convince people to tolerate a cheap car. They look at China exporting a category of car that has already been tested on hundreds of thousands of real customers in China. And maybe that's the bigger story. If most of your driving is work, shopping, school, home, and you can charge regularly, 500 kilometers of range may be nice, but you don't actually need all of that every day. You're carrying around a lot of battery for the occasional journey rather than the daily routine. And a bigger battery adds cost. It's heavier, which means you need larger tires, larger brakes, more powerful motors, and suddenly your affordable little EV isn't little or affordable anymore. Cars like the Xingyuan and Seagull go the other way. They don't try to be everything, and clearly millions of Chinese buyers are okay with that. But now comes to the difficult part. Because Australia isn't China, it isn't Europe. Australia's cities are spread out, regional journeys are longer, and public charging is still uneven in many places. So when an Australian buyer sees 220 kilometers of range, you don't automatically think, oh, that's enough for going to school, for going to work, for going to the other side of the town. Because we don't buy cars only for the average weekdays. We also buy them for the spontaneous weekend road trips. And in Australia, that can mean traveling hundreds of kilometers in a single day. And that is what the Atto 1 is asking Australians to put a price on. Now, if we look at the cars around it, and this is where the $23,990 price becomes interesting, it's sitting in the same part of the market as the internal combustion engine cars Australians are familiar with. The Atto 1 undercuts an entry-level Toyota Yaris by around 5,000 Australian dollars before on-road costs. Similar price to a Mazda 2, a Suzuki Swift. Now, Atto 1 sitting underneath most of them on price. That's new. And that is why I think the Geely EX2 matters. If the Atto 1 were the only car at this price, maybe we'd call it an unusually aggressive BYD strategy. But the Geely EX2 is now here at $26,490. 5 seats, a 35 kilowatt-hour LFP battery, 252 kilometers of WLTP range. And remember, the Chinese version of this car was the #1 selling passenger car in China last year. So we're no longer looking at one strange cheap EV. We're starting to see something else. A new price floor. And then several more EVs sitting around the low $30,000 mark. For years, the question in Australia was, when will EVs become affordable? I'm starting to think we are very close to the point where that becomes the wrong question. Because look at what actually happened. 15 years ago, Mitsubishi tried to sell Australians a small electric city car for nearly $50,000. The idea wasn't necessarily stupid, the economics were. Today, battery costs have collapsed. China manufactures EV components at enormous scale. Companies like BYD control a surprisingly large share of the expensive technology inside the car themselves. And Chinese consumers have already proved there is a huge market for smaller EVs that work for most people. So Australia is now receiving cars like the Atto 1, the EX2, at prices that would have sounded almost impossible only a few years ago. And once a brand new EV exists at $23,990, you look sideways at every small petrol or hybrid cars around it. The Atto 1 may not suit every Australian driver, but it could still change what all of us think a new car should cost. China's cheapest EVs are not just bringing down the price of electric cars, they are making the rest of the car market look expensive. I'm Tom, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.